And by the way, everything is on the website. But are you? Oh, thank you. Let me give you, because there was one page that got wrong, so let me replace it. Write this. Oh, it was just a typo. So let me.
Because there are still a couple principles out there.
I'm tearing off this page right here and replacing it with this page right here. And so this is the federal self-funded competition, and this is the GP. And then all of the other, everything that we're doing is posted on that website. Well, they said they were going to post it simultaneously. I know it's
I'm going to read now. I'd like to convene the regular meeting of the Hamilton County School Board, and it is my distinct privilege to recognize, oh, excuse me, go do roll call, Do roll call, Ms. Ford.
Chairman Highlander.
Here.
Vice Chairman Jones. Here. Mr. Galloway.
Here.
Mrs. Lennon. Here. Mrs. Robinson. Here. Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Testerman.
Here.
Mrs. Thurman. Mr. Wingate.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Superintendent Dr. Johnson.
Here. Thank you very much. Now I need to read the approval of the agenda. We have some amendments first. Need to be read, some changes. Under 5E, we have struck the Signal Mountain Middle High School mock trial team. And Mr. Bennett, we will bring them at a later date, I hope.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No further hard work from the state.
We do not want to miss that. Under Chief Business Officer, Don Hall, we have 1A, Union Fork Bakewell Utility District easement document, which we've added. We also have under Roman numeral 10, item 6, purchase of maintenance vehicles from Justin Witt. We have some additional appearances before the board. Let me remind you, each of those will be 5 minutes, as I'm sure our very efficient Vice Chair will remind you. One appearance before the board, the library leadership team, Debbie Condry. Chris, now please give me a little latitude if I miss this. Chris Shauna Smith, Mason Thomas, Graham, resolution over HB 2208, Brett E. Schlisner, UTC, Franklin McCauley, and Karen Clarkson. Please do stick within your 5 minutes. We have, I'm sorry, we had,
by Mr. Testerman, if you wanted to add.
Okay, yes, that's correct. Also, Mr. Testerman has added, has brought up Ed for discussion, under item, Roman numeral item 10, under administrative business matters, discussion of changes in the incentive package. That will be brought up. With those, do I have a motion that we approve?
Approved.
Second?
Second.
Approved and second.
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Lennon and Ms. Jones. Okay. Anything that we need to pull?
That's fine.
Oh, no, not, sorry, that's consent agenda, excuse me. Okay.
Mr. Galloway,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Testerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Mr. Wingate,
Yes.
Chairman Holland.
Yes. It is my distinct privilege to recognize Crystal Sarles. And if I may, as a point of personal privilege, Ms. Sarles' father was a friend of mine and a competitor of mine and a very fine gentleman. And he's meant a great deal to the school, to the school system in this county through the years. And we appreciate his service and yours, Ms. Sarles.
I'm going to defer to one of my students.
Superintendent Johnson, Chairman Highlander, school board members, HCDE staff, and community friends. Hello, my name is Mia Ferrier. I'm here with my schoolmates Patrick Sullivan and JT Hood. We are students at Turner Middle Academy. Although we are a math, science, and technology magnet school, we recognize and celebrate the arts and education. Earlier this month, our TMA faculty ensemble made their debut during our annual Black History program. With this being Arts in School Month, we thought it would be most appropriate for them to perform to you for today as well.
The selection being performed is Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child, arranged by our very own band director, Mr. Marlon Smith. This spiritual, like many others, moves the spirit. Many of these spiritual songs were created in the 19th century when African American slaves communities sang them to tell their own stories. Many of the top spirituals have recurring themes of yearning for freedom, the hope to be lifted out of suffering, and belief that a higher power will help a person to persevere through tough times. Ladies and gentlemen, the TMA faculty ensemble.
At TMA, not only are we too much awesome, we celebrate diversity and work to embrace all people. In the words of Nelson Mandela, no one is born hating another person because of his background or the color of his skin or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Thank you. Now will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Next time, maybe I'm going over Jordan. Thank you. Now we have Exemplars of Excellence, Chattanooga Central High Center for Creative Arts, named the National Magnet School of Excellence. I said, who's doing that, Dr.
Justin. Oh, I'm sorry, Leanne was coming up.
Mrs. Ware, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, to Chairman Hollander, Vice Chair Mosley Jones, to Superintendent Johnson and members of the board. It is my pleasure to come before you to recognize Chattanooga High Center for Creative Arts as a National Magnet School of Excellence and also as a nationally certified magnet school. Chattanooga Center for Creative Arts has been named a National Magnet School of Excellence by Magnet School of America, the National Association for Magnet and Theme-Based Schools. The school will be recognized and receive a National Magnet of School of Excellence Merit Award during an award ceremony held at Magnet Schools of America 36th National Conference hosted by Chicago Public Schools in Chicago, Illinois, April 25th through the 29th, 2018. And of course, we have here Principal Debbie Smith and Amy. They're going to come up and tell you a little bit about how hard they work for that award.
Thank you for having us here tonight, Superintendent Johnson and members of the school board. It gives me pleasure to celebrate this award not just for the Center for Creative Arts, but also for Hamilton County Schools. And for Tyrese Jones, who's a product of CCA and in our acting department. We are so proud of the work of our students, of our families, of our teachers, and they are the ones that bring forth the arts embedded in their curriculums, but also to make sure they nurture the passions and desires for these emerging artists. Research shows that the arts makes a well-rounded citizen, a productive student, and someone who is successful in life. An appreciation for the arts comes, but at our school, it is a part of the way of life for each one of our students. And I know there's some parents out in the audience. I know another one of my staff members is here. Will you please stand so that I want them to be a part of this also, because it takes everyone working together. Amy Medley is our Dean of Fine Arts, and she worked extremely hard to help us through this process. We went through a year-long process for the Magnet School certification, and we were just granted a Magnet School of Excellence just a few weeks ago. So we will go to Chicago to accept these awards on behalf of our school, but also on behalf of the Hamilton County School System. And we thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to celebrate with all of you all, celebrating the arts. That is what we are about, and that's what everyone in this room needs to embrace and be a part of, because that's what makes our students successful at our school, but at many schools, and it should be at all schools. Thank you.
Ms. Smith, I'll tell you, I'm going to read this out. Certificate of Recognition. The Hamilton County Board of Education hereby recognizes Chattanooga High Center for Creative Arts as a National Magnet School of Excellence. Congratulations, Ms. Smith. And I got to tell you, folks, this is not something that just happens every now and then. These folks win something all the time. And if you've never been to one of their productions, you just got to go. It's professional. And you've got a new star on TV.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
tell
and
me
I
about
would
that.
be remiss if I didn't say that. The new show Rise, the show Rise that is on NBC, and now it's on at 9 o'clock on Tuesday evening. One of the lead roles is Damon Gillespie, and he's a graduate of Chattanooga High, and I've been saying this. He's an all-American kid that pursued his passions and dreams, and he's making it. And he's making it, and he mentions Chattanooga. He mentions our school every time he does an interview. We are so proud of him, and you need to see him in action. And it really hasn't settled in yet with him. He's working in New York at a Dunkin' Donuts, and so we're going to see him in a couple of weeks. But I'm going to say this tonight. One of the big fundraisers that our parent group is doing, they are flying Damon into our school for the weekend, May 4th, 5th, and 6th, where he will do a public master dance class. We will have a small showcase, and he will perform for our students, but also do a Q&A to talk about the story of his life in Chattanooga, then in a Hamilton County school, and the success that he's now experiencing. And we are looking forward to that as well. I'd love to have all of you all come, for sure, and I will invite you.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. I want to recognize our student board member, Tyree, is going to say something, but let me say, if I may, my niece graduated valedictorian from that school, was a concert level violinist, but she also was a magna cum laude graduate in chemistry, and has a chemical engineering degree, and is the chemical engineer for Volkswagen. So she's not just are they in performing arts, but in the academics and sciences they exceed as well. So Tyree, if you would please say.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, Mrs. Smith, you have been a part of my life for the last 4 years, you, Mrs. Medley, and also I want to say thank you to our librarian who is here today. All of you have been a part of our life, a part of my life for the last 4 years. And as I leave CCA, as I wrap up these last 29 days that I have with school, I will always keep CCA as a part of me, as a piece of home from Chattanooga as I move to New York. Thank you so much for all you've done.
Dr. Johnson, the way he counts days like Dr. McDade does minutes. So.
Mr. Holland.
Yeah, if we could please. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Testman.
Yes, when I walked in tonight and saw all the beautiful artwork on the walls, it brought back a feeling of good in my heart. The disciple of Hamilton County Art is with us, and I'll tell you, Rodney Van Valkenburg has been tireless in his communicating to educators the role of arts in the school. And I remember fondly the days that I spent at White Oak Elementary School. We had an Allied Arts grant. It was so exciting, so exciting. Mayor Kinsey and then Mayor Corker himself opened up their office, and our students from White Oak Elementary School provided art for their offices at the City Hall for those 5 years. And it was so exciting to see all this beautiful artwork. And this should be, and hopefully it will be soon enough, replicated all over this county. Our children do deserve it. They really do. And so I am thankful for what Rodney Van Valkenburg has done with his influence and his determination never to stop. When I say Gans Middle Valley School, we had a penny drive. Pennies. We collected pennies, started by, I think it was a little bit of a relationship with Mr. Highlander. But we had a music teacher that started a penny collection each year that turned out hundreds of dollars for music and for arts in our school. it does change lives, and I am glad that we're at this point where we're seeing money put back into our budget for arts. Thank you, folks, for what you've done.
Thank you so much, sir.
Debbie,
I'm sorry.
You're a star for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cashman. Folks, we appreciate we got a whole lot to do tonight, and we want to honor everyone that's supposed to be honored. Ms. Ware, I believe you're doing the Collegiate High graduate. Now, Caitlyn Mcafee, is that correct? Mr. Sharp. Dr. Sharp, sorry, sir.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Highlander. We are recognizing Caitlyn Mcafee from Collegiate High. And I think I saw Caitlyn walk in with her school counselor. What is it? There you are. Oh, come on up. You too. Let me tell you just a bit about Caitlyn. Caitlyn is actually, you've got 29 days left. Caitlyn was actually a December graduate, and she graduated from Collegiate High in December. And she is one of the top runner-ups in Tennessee for the 2018 Prudential Spirit of Community Awards. Caitlyn is a leader, was a leader at Collegiate High and a leader in our community. She is also a part, she's the National Scoliosis Foundation Angel Brigade member and the 2017 recipient of the Outstanding Youth in Philanthropy Award for Southeast Tennessee, and the co-director of fundraising for the National Scoliosis Foundation. When she's not working on Color the Curve, she often volunteers with Special Olympics and March of Dimes. The Prudential Spirit of Community Award program is the largest youth recognition program in the United States and based exclusively on volunteer community service. So Caitlyn brings all of those intangibles to our community, and it's exciting that she's received this recognition. And would you like to say something to us about what you've done since graduation? Great.
So since graduation in December, I've been working on volunteering for March of Dimes and the National Scoliosis Foundation still. I run a support group because I found out that I actually had scoliosis when I was 12 years old, and I was bullied a lot, and I didn't want anyone else to have to feel that same way. So I started an event called Color the Curve, and it was a fun run to raise money for scoliosis. So we donate 100% of the proceeds to the National Scoliosis Foundation, and we have now raised over $60,000. That has all been. Thank you.
We'd like, there's a representative from Prudential here this evening to present her with her Medal of Honor.
And I just dropped. Great pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Josh Martin. I am a advisor with Prudential Financial. Great pleasure to be here. Such an honor to honor such a great young woman. My company, Prudential Financial, in partnership with the National Association of Secondary School Principals, sponsors the Prudential Spirit of Community Awards. This national program honors middle-level and high school students for outstanding volunteer service. Thousands of young people across the world, across the country, are considered for this 2018 Spirit of Community Awards. From all of these, a select few from each state and the District of Columbia have been selected for this special recognition. Here in Tennessee, I'm delighted to report that one of our distinguished finalists in this year's program is your own Caitlyn Mcafee. Caitlyn, will you please come forward? Caitlyn has raised more than $65,000 for the National Scoliosis Foundation over the past 5 years by organizing the Color the Curve 5K 1 mile fun run, and also leads a support group serving people with scoliosis and their families. This is special to me because my wife has scoliosis, not a severe case. I personally have a type of kyphosis, makes you slouch. So this is a great honor for me, especially, to present this award to Caitlyn for her outstanding community service. Caitlyn. Congratulations. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson, would you like to read that to her?
I would be happy to.
Please do.
The Hamilton County Board of Education hereby recognizes Caitlyn Mcafee of Hamilton County Collegiate High as a 2018 Prudential Spirit of Community Award winner. Congratulations.
Great. Great. We would very much like for her principal to come up as well and honor her.
Come right on.
Come on. We appreciate all your efforts, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you both very much. Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you. We appreciate you. Unless I'm mistaken, I did not with Leandra and not with Mrs. Ware, but with Alicia, I had dinner at the Electric Power Board and honored for her poetry writing, which I was very honored to see her there. But Mrs. Ware will do the honors, please.
Absolutely, and I know Melisha was on her way. Hopefully, Melisha, yes, give that young lady a hand if she comes this way. Come on up, Melisha. Melisha, come on down. All right, so next, the Hamilton County Board of Education would like to recognize Melisha Cook as the winner of the EPB Black History Poetry Contest. Each of the 327 entries EPB received celebrating Black history in Chattanooga was outstanding. They were outstanding. But Melisha's entry was exceptional. Melisha and her teacher will each receive a prize of $100 and were honored at a banquet that Dr. Highlander just mentioned on March 15, 2018. And yesterday I went by to visit with Melisha, and she beamed as she told me about her essay and allowed me to read how diligent she was in writing that essay and exuding her passion for what she was writing about. So would you please help me recognize Melisha for her hard work?
My name is Melisha, and I just wanted to say that when you hear the word Washington, you think about a school that has people that act up or people who don't care and stuff like that, and it's not even close to that. The teachers as well as the students, they care a lot about their work, and the thing you should think about when you hear students at Washington, you should think about why did they do it? What were the reasons they were fighting? What were the reasons they were doing anything they did to get in there? So what I'm saying is that Washington isn't a school for bad students or anything like that. It's for people who made a mistake.
That's right. Yeah.
And it gives you a chance to reinvent yourself. And I'm a completely different person I was from when I was in my old school, from how I am at Washington. So I think being at Washington is really a chance to reinvent yourself and change yourself. And it gives you a chance to show everybody that you're different from what everybody thinks you are.
That's right.
Ms. Mosley Jones is going to give her award recognition.
So on behalf of the Hamilton County Board of Education, we hereby recognize you, Melisha. Melisha Cook of Washington Alternative School as the winner of the EPB Black History Poetry Contest, and you just made my heart smile.
Yeah.
Would Ms. Alicia and all the adults that are with her please come and honor us with a handshake, please.
This is her teacher, Ms. Goins, who she said has all kind of hands-on engaging activities every day, and this is her grandmother.
Thank you.
All right.
Mrs. Ware?
Yes, sir. Next, we are going to recognize Lucas Wright from Lookout Valley Middle High School. Lucas and your family, if you would come forward.
Mr. Rushworth as well.
And Mr. Rushworth, I'm sorry, Principal Rushworth. So the Hamilton County Department of Education is pleased to recognize Lucas Wright from Lookout Valley Middle High School, who was named a Horatio Alger Tennessee State Scholar. Lucas is the only student from Chattanooga and one of 8 students in the state to receive this award. This award is given to students from every state that experienced challenges, but ultimately overcame them to become successful business and civic leaders. Also, we have here his mother, Rebecca Ballard, and we want to tell you just a few more things about Lucas. Lucas is the salutatorian. Lucas, he participates in Model Nations for 4 years, the United Model Nations for 4 years. He is a participant in Youth in Government for 4 years, a participant in the band for 4 years as band captain and officer. He is president of the student body, treasurer of senior class, co-founder of the Lookout Valley Government Club. He's on the tennis team, and he's an intern for PEL. Tell me he didn't overcome some odds. Woo! So I'm going to ask Lucas if he would like to share just a few words about this amazing accomplishment.
Well, recently applying for different scholarships in different colleges has kind of shown me that even though my school isn't necessarily like every other school and we don't offer as many AP classes or as many honors classes as others, it's not really what you're offered, it's what you do with what you're offered.
That's right.
And so I think a lot of these colleges and foundations, they really recognize how you use your resources that you're given.
That's right.
Mr. Joe Galloway, representing Lookout Valley High School, would like to give you an award, sir.
Right here, Lucas. Certificate of recognition, the Hamilton County Board of Education hereby recognizes Lucas Wright of Lookout Valley Middle High as Horatio Alger Tennessee State Scholar. Congratulations.
Please honor us with a handshake. We'd like Mr. Rushworth and his mom to come up too.
And just a last bit of information, Lucas received a $10,000 scholarship to use towards his collegiate expenses. So congratulations again, Lucas.
Thank you so much. If I may say, we would like to say a word of honor to for Mr. Rick Rushworth and his wonderful wife for the many years of dedicated wonderful service they've given Hamilton County. Dr. Shaw.
Yes, sir. We have one more recognition tonight, and I want to ask Keandra Allen from Tyner Academy to come up to the podium, please, and her teacher, Mr. Brickmore. Thank you. The Tyner Academy Quiz Bowl team recently won the African American History Quiz Bowl, which is an event sponsored each year by the 100 Black Men of Chattanooga. And Keandra and with her teammate Kennedy Gales won the local competition and actually will advance to the national competition in Miami Beach, Florida. So they've got an exciting trip in store for them, and I'd like, if Keandra, if you'd like to say a word about the competition, and then we'll give you the certificate.
Hi, my name is Keandra Allen, and I've been a student at Tyner all of my school year since 8th grade. And when my teacher asked me to do this, I was a little bit nervous because you think, I don't know anything about my history. And that kind of makes you sad because I've never taken an African American history class until I got to Tyner. And you learn a lot of new things about your history that I never knew before. And so this competition helped me learn some things that I can be proud of. And I'd like to thank my teacher for asking me to do this.
Award, please. And then we certainly want to shake your hand too.
Certificate of Recognition, the Hamilton County Board of Education hereby recognizes Tyner Academy African American History Quiz Bowl team as the winner of the AFAM History Bowl. It's signed by Dr. Johnson and myself as your school board member. Congratulations to all your teams. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you so much. Under presentation, C&I Reorganization, Dr. Justin Robertson.
Dr. Highlander, Dr. Johnson, thank you for allowing me a minute to talk about the reorganization of teaching and learning. If you'll remember, back at the February board meeting, we presented a reorganization of operations and wanted to follow up this month with how we will take our resources and assets in C&I and help them to support those different learning communities. Again, the goal is for us as the Department of Education to become the fastest improving school district in Tennessee. Want to highlight before we even get started, this reorganization is budget neutral. I'll point out one request to upgrade a position, but it is through taking some other things out of our budget, so it will be a budget neutral request. I want to start by looking at some data and to make a case for why we need to reorganize and how we can better support teachers to help them be successful in schools. This is a heat map look at our value added from 2017. A couple of things stand out, and they've already been addressed in some other reorganization moves. Do want to point out some highlights. Of course, the literacy is a huge highlight. We focus strongly on literacy and with some of the biggest gains in Tennessee. Also want to point out the CTE concentrators, which led to the initial conversations about future-ready institutes and the importance of engaging our students in high school. Beyond that, there's not a lot of positives. You can see we're ones in a lot of areas. It is a pretty bleak-looking heat map. Looking at achievement results from elementary, middle school, and high school, and again, this is just looking at ELA and math. You'll see that we're trailing the state in most categories. However, there is a bright spot in elementary math where we are beating the state. We think that our first step in terms of competitiveness is we need to beat the state. We need to see each of these columns for Hamilton County be above the state, just like elementary math is. Here's a historical look at achievement results and success rate, and it's by year. And the reason I did this is we've had some changes in testing, some changes in standards. However, this is an apples to apples comparison. This is us against the state in middle school, and you'll see in 2013-14, 14-15, and again in 16-17 that we're trailing the state in middle schools. We see this as an opportunity for us to transition, an opportunity for us to do things differently and to start looking at what we need to do to support teachers to help our kids be successful. Again, a look at value added by school, and again, this is set up by middle schools and it's through historical years. If you look at 2013-14, you see that 8 of our schools were level 1 and 6 were level 5s with several in between. Again, in 14-15, 12 were level 1s, only 3 were level 5s, and this is by middle schools again. And then 16-17, you see 8 that were level 1 and 10 were level 2. What's interesting about that, you would expect in theory for us to see a little bit of a bell curve, and that is the exact opposite of a bell curve. We have a huge variation among our middle schools. We've got 8 schools that are really trending at the highest level, and then we've got 10 that really struggled. We want to make sure that we're supporting all of our schools so that they can be successful, and supporting our networks in a way and using our assets in a way that we can make sure that we are seeing more and more of our schools at a level 3 and above. Minimum should be a level 3. Again, just a look at some more specific growth measures. This is by grade level, so you'll see 6th grade ELA, math, science, 7th and 8th. Want to point out here in the middle, this kind of stands out. If you look at 7th grade, that's a place that we struggled. We pointed out earlier in the year this big red number in 6th grade math that we're addressing, but if you look at it from a trend, really 7th grade is an area that we struggled across the district last year, and it's an area that we need to focus on moving forward. Again, this is what I presented at the February board meeting, this idea of breaking up into 4 learning communities. If you think about the opportunity zone, it would be a 5th, but looking at feeder patterns, geography, and then also student counts. You'll see the left-hand column. These are some of the things that we hope to address. Of course, there's a lot of diversity across those networks. We want to make sure that we're meeting students where they are and serving each community in a way that meets their needs. We feel like this is a great way for us to build capacity within those networks so that we're using our assets to really support them, but are building the leadership within the network. Finally, building community, something that's addressed, I think, in the budget and that we'll look to build in each of these learning communities. Again, clarifying the go-to contact and strengthening feeder patterns. So if you think about teaching and learning in my department, this is what it looks like. And if you'll see on this left-hand side, the school leadership side, that's what we presented at the last board meeting. We've done a lot of work on this far right-hand side with post-secondary in terms of future-ready institutes. That would include junior ROTC, which we have some exciting things going on in junior ROTC. Kind of the question has been teaching and learning. What are we going to do differently in teaching and learning to support these networks to ensure that teachers are equipped with the resources, materials, and supports they need to help students be successful? So when you look at this question mark, that's what we're here tonight to address, is what are we going to do differently in teaching and learning to support schools? Here's what we're proposing, and again, I want to point out that this is a budget neutral move, but we do have currently a setup that doesn't support schools the best way that it can. It's a setup that's a little bit confusing for school leaders. It's confusing for the community, and we feel like this brings alignment to our district. It focuses on supporting each grade level, elementary, middle school, and high school, and it will provide supports all across the 4 learning communities. So what we're proposing is to have an early learning director. This is a director level 1 existing position. We're asking to have a elementary K through 5 director. Again, director level 1. It's an existing position. Underneath that elementary director, we're going to have content lead teachers. So we'll have 2 ELA, one in the K through 2, which would be primary support, one in the 3 through 5, which would be intermediate support. Also, same thing with math, primary and intermediate, and then have a science lead teacher for elementary. The high school, this is an existing, again, director level 1 position. This is more support than we've had in high schools in a long time. To have an ELA lead teacher, a math lead teacher, a science lead teacher, social studies, and then of course at the bottom you see the fine arts. Really what I want to focus on today is middle schools. I think we have a unique opportunity right now to really pivot and shift our focus to get middle schools right. It's an area that we can have an immediate impact and that's really poised to make a comeback. In years past, we've seen middle schools really thrive. Last several years, we haven't seen that as much, and I think it's because as a district, we've lost focus on supporting those middle schools and providing the leaders and the teachers with the support that they need. So this middle school position has some school-based positions in it. Right now, under the GP budget, we have school-based coaches in every one of our middle schools. It's a huge investment, right? Right now, in the past several years, we have not supported that investment. And we've got to change that. We've got to make sure that we're providing those school-based coaches in the middle schools with the professional development and the resources they need to really change the instruction in middle schools. We're leaving those positions in place, and we're almost doubling down to make sure that that investment pays off. This middle school position is an upgraded position. Currently, it's a program director, which is a 260-day position, basically a teacher that gets paid for 12 months. To change that to a director level 1, depending on who is put in that position and where they fall on the salary scale, it's going to be anywhere from about $15,000 to $20,000 difference. The reason I'm telling you it's budget neutral, if you remember the last time that I presented, we're going through line by line in our budget for teaching and learning and looking at things that we're not using. One that we've already taken steps to remove for next year is a program called MyPath. It's an add-on to Edgenuity. It cost us $40,000 the past 2 years, and we've seen very little use across high schools. We're not going to renew that contract next year, so there's $40,000 in savings that more than makes up for the difference of going from a program director to a director level 1 for middle schools. Again, I want to point out the importance of it. We're investing millions of dollars to put 20 school-based coaches in middle schools. We're not supporting them in our current structure. This structure right here provides more support to middle schools, elementary schools, and high schools. It's a different approach. It's focused more on curriculum materials, resource materials, and not as much coaching. However, with our networks, again, if you go back to think about one of the reasons we're breaking up into networks is to build leadership capacity within those networks. We feel like we have the talent and the expertise that we need in those networks. What we need to do is support them and to remove the barriers that are keeping them from being successful right now. Again, go back to the last slide. This shows the question mark in the final piece and kind of the reorganization of the teaching and learning department is taking what was currently or in the past called curriculum instruction, aligning it to teaching and learning here that'll work side by side with the school leadership piece in the 4 networks. So a couple of reframed and different positions. The director of teaching and learning for the early learning, elementary, middle, and high school. Here's a short job description. I'm not going to read every bit of it, but I think the first bullet really points out the big difference is it's really looking at more of the development, implementation, evaluation, ongoing improvement of district curriculum and making sure that it's aligned to Tennessee state standards. And then I want to point out the second bullet that I think is extremely important. They're going to collaborate with the area, the learning community executive directors to make sure that the action plans that we have in schools are meeting the needs of the students in those learning networks. Also, the content lead teachers, I want to point out, first of all, that this is a little bit of a change. Those positions as they currently exist are kind of, some of them are 211 days, some are 220, there's one that's 260, we're trying to get them all to 231 days. What this basically does is builds in to their contract that they can do summer professional development. It provides a level playing field for those positions and a unique emphasis on science, which is a place that we've struggled and we haven't supported in years past. But it really, what it does is it provides an opportunity for them to have summer hours to support schools, to support curriculum development, and do it in a way that meets the needs of each of the networks. Again, I'm not going to read each of these bullets, but again, there's collaboration. It's working with the area. The learning community executive directors also working with the teaching and learning directors to make sure that we're aligned. This is the biggest thing, is to make sure that we're aligned across the district, that we're aligned K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Here's a quick timeline for our department of some big things that are coming up. For the executive directors, we hope to have those positions filled by April 16th. The teaching and learning directors, we're looking at a timeline of April 23rd. Content leads will follow shortly after that. And then also the principals by May 7th. I missed a big component of this, and I apologize. I've got to go back one slide. Over here on the far right, these learning community coaches. These are existing positions, but we feel like there's a need to have somebody from teaching and learning embedded into each community to ensure that that alignment is taking place and that the supports are provided or there, so that teachers know within their network, within their learning community, here's a go-to person that if I need materials for second grade literacy or for sixth grade science, they've got a go-to person that's embedded in their network, that's touching base with the teaching and learning team, and also working with the executive directors to make sure that we're successfully aligned across those networks. That's a key piece, in my opinion, and something that we haven't had recently. I apologize for missing that. Finally, the May 7th date for hiring principals. We have a number of openings that we'll start interviewing for and making sure that we're also getting community input. We're looking to send out a survey to each of the communities that currently have an opening to hear what not only teachers want, but what the community wants. And we're not looking to go to have a listening session. Basically, we're looking for attributes that they expect to see in a leader for their school. And we think that's a key component of getting those principals in place early in May. So finally, here's a quote, and I'm not going to read each word, but we've highlighted some key words. So basically, the goal of the teaching and learning department is to make sure that we're improving performance, make sure that we improve quality, increase output, that we have pride in our workmanship, and then at the very bottom, to remove the causes of failure to help people do a better job with less effort. We have teachers that are working extremely hard. They're spending countless hours trying to find materials, trying to find good assessment items, trying to put good lesson plans together. The goal of teaching and learning is to do that work so that teachers can teach kids. And if we can do that and support them and really remove that barrier, I think that we're going to see a ton of growth. And I'm committed, and you can call us back here in a year and a half, but I think that if we can invest this money and really focus and double down on middle schools, we're going to see some immediate improvements across 6 through 8. Again, it's what we're looking for, fastest improving district in Tennessee. Any questions or comments?
Board members, any questions? Ms. Robinson first.
I think this is part of the community or the learning communities. Are you still planning to ask teachers to be, principals to be mentors? Okay.
Yes, and also we're looking to get some teacher support too here in the coming weeks. We're going to request to teachers to come alongside us to revise curriculum guides, to look at assessment items, and we're looking to get 2 to 3 teachers in each content area from across the district to come and support us in that this spring and early summer. So when we come back in August, we have curriculum guides that are aligned, assessment items that are ready to go, and that we've got teacher input from in that process.
Okay. And the way that you've divided up the learning communities, it looks like you've done it by area. I guess I was kind of curious, say for magnet schools, why didn't you make a learning community? Because it seems like they probably have a different structure.
Yeah, so it's a great question. To be honest with you, we went back and forth about magnet schools, and so I'll put it this way that made the most sense to me. If we put magnet schools in their own learning community, basically what we're doing is saying we're only worried about making magnet schools better, right? If we leave them in their feeder patterns, or at least in the geographical location that they are, what we're saying is that magnet schools have some strength and they've been allowed to do some things that other schools haven't. So we can use that expertise to support the learning communities. Let me give you a great example. We're looking very aggressively at moving to one-to-one. STEM school is a great example of someone that 5 years ago started one-to-one. We have the experts in our backyard. So if we put STEM school as part of just a magnet conglomerate, we're isolating them from the rest of the district, where now we look to use the expertise in going one-to-one and say, support us now as a district as we move to one-to-one.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense about magnets, and I fully agree with you. That's great. Where are my schools on this?
So, you asked me some hard questions.
Downtown. Okay.
So there's going to be
opportunities on, but where's STEM, CSA, and Battle? Where do they fall?
You're going to have Battle and Brown in this network right here. You're going to have STEM is going to fall here, I believe. And give me the other one that you said. Yeah, so if you think about Lookout Valley Red Bank, it's basically, it follows Moccasin Bend. So I'm trying to think of some creative names to come. Okay, we'll make it the Robinson.
Robinson Community. Thank you. The next question was, the next one was from Mrs. Lennon and then Mr. Testament.
I'm very excited about this, by the way. That was great. Thank you so much. It just made sense. And I like the focus on the middle schools. I just hear time and time again that we've got to focus on that. I was punching Tiffany and saying, wait till your kids are in middle school. She'll know what we're talking about. One thing that I'm really excited about the fine arts lead teacher that we have. And I just hope that maybe next year we could cut that in half and have 2 of them, to where that fine arts lead teacher has all K through 12, that maybe we could have K through elementary and then middle and high or something, because that is a lot for one person to do K through 12.
It is, and I'll be very transparent with you. We're asking a lot of each of these positions. If we were coming with a Cadillac request, we would be asking for this in each of the communities. We'd be asking for an elementary math, ELA, middle school. Here are the assets that we have, and we're trying to rearrange them and leverage them so that we can support people better. Claire Stockman, I think, just said amen behind me, but I do want to point out the art around here is from our current K through 12 lead teacher. She does some amazing work, with 2 hands. So she's doing a great job, and I think she'll be up to this task.
Thank you. Mr. Testament?
Yes, I have a comment, but it all reflects here. You used a gentleman's name, Jimmy. I was a history teacher and always found it fascinating how things work together and there's a connection with things. MacArthur, after World War II, he was given a task of rebuilding what used to be the Imperial Japanese country. And he brought in a person to help him. It was Deming. Deming was the idea of the mind that MacArthur wanted to help establish what their country would look like in business, in government, and education. It was Deming that he called on. The key element of Deming, and this is what I say, this is a great plan, but I hope that we put a time on this thing, that we don't come back next year and do something different. It needs to be a 5-year plan, and a 5-year plan that comes back and that is tweeted. We've got to stop reinventing things. Deming, one of the key elements to it, of all of his plans, was collaborative management. And I hope that we in this county will learn that lesson, that it's not one person, it's all of us that make the difference. And it takes our sheriff's department, our business leaders, the mothers, the fathers, the children. It takes us all to get together and to hash out ideas. And when the ideas come together, we do it collaboratively, and if we do so, we will be successful. We will be. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Thurman?
Yes, I have been contacted over the years by some middle school principals who are concerned that we no longer, first of all, we start teaching algebra in 8th grade, and they don't have what they used to call 8th grade math, which is the algebra prep class. That could be the reason for some of these low math scores. A lot of people don't understand when we start monkeying around with stuff like that, how it makes our grades really look a lot worse. Is there any thought to continuing to have the prep in the 8th grade and start teaching algebra in the 9th grade and give the kids, I mean, some kids can handle that and some kids just can't. Is there any kind of thought about switching that back to, some of the principals have told me, the way it used to be, that it seemed to work a lot better that way?
So I 100% agree with you, and especially with the standards change, what we consider to be Algebra 1, back when you and I were taking Algebra 1, it's not Algebra 1 anymore. A lot of those standards are in 8th grade math. And so what we're seeing is kids that aren't ready to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade are trying to jump and take it, and they're missing a ton of the standards. So I 100% agree with you. We worked pretty closely with principals to ensure that they're using data to put students in Algebra 1. I won't agree with you on saying that we shouldn't have, there should be the option of Algebra 1 in 8th grade, but it needs to be a number of people. I'll use the best example, and I'm not doing this just because it's in your district. It's Loftus Middle School. Loftus Middle School has a...
And she gives an update on her progress.
Who is actually in the umbrella of the equity department. So we have school counselors, the coordinator of school counselors, student services, exceptional education, English language learners, health services, and coordinator of 504s. So what is equity actually? Well, equity means that we organize our resources and systems and processes to meet the individual student needs. The key word is individual needs, and that not one size fits all. Students have a range of physical, social, emotional, and academic needs, and so our services to support those students include our English language learner support, exceptional ed programs, behavioral supports, and school health, as well as our wraparound services, social workers, truancy officers, and school psychologists. And we're going to provide all students with equitable access to a quality educational experience with intentional planning of supports for students. So next here we have just a visual for you. Each student needs something different. It's not a cookie cutter approach, and we're trying to leverage. So the goals of our equity task force identify those opportunities and make some recommendations for improvement to our educational equity for students in historically underserved groups. We're going to review some of the school programming, such as the magnet procedures, student assignments, such as open enrollment, discipline, English language learner practices and procedures, exceptional ed practices and procedures. And lastly, we will develop a equity framework with key performance indicators to hold the district accountable for our student outcomes goal. The members of our task force, we have asked 30 leaders have been tapped to join our task force. Our board chairman has graciously agreed to be a member of that task force, along with principals, teachers, parents, community leaders, Hamilton County government, business leaders, and HCDE leaders. The timeline, our first kickoff meeting will be April the 10th, and we plan to have approximately 6 to 7 meetings. We'll meet twice in the month of May and twice in June. Our 6th meeting in July will be where we produce that draft of the framework and KPIs, and then in the middle of July we will finalize that and make recommendations. All that is the equity department. What we are going to contribute to Hamilton County being the fastest improving school district in Tennessee.
Any questions, board? Mrs. Mosley Jones.
Dr. Drake, have those, the leaders that you, or the members of the team, have those individuals been contacted already? Have you solidified?
Yes, they have been contacted and they have until tomorrow at 5 o'clock
To respond?
to respond.
Okay.
No other questions? Thank you very much, Dr. Gray. Appreciate your work. If I may have a point of executive privilege, if I've left anyone out, yes ma'am, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take it, whether you want me to or not. We have 2 former elected officials and 1 current that I know of. If there are any others, I would appreciate your letting me be made aware of it. But we have, if he's still here, our former city councilman, Mr. Youssef Hakeem. Would you stand up, please, sir? You still here? He was here a few minutes ago. He may have stepped out. Also, we have our former D9 school board member and former chair, Mr. Mike Evitt. Would you stand up, please, sir? And also the son of the former sheriff. Thank you, sir. And our current high sheriff. And we're very appreciative of Mr. Jim Hammond, our current high sheriff. Give them a hand, if you would, please. And we're having delegations. I'll turn it over to Ms. Mosley Jones.
Good evening. Our delegations for tonight are as follows. What I will do is list everyone who is going to be a delegation speaker. I'll read the delegation statement, and then you all will just proceed as your name has been called in the line. So we have Sheriff Jim Hammond for school safety, Ron Thomas, school safety, Christine Essex, school safety, Claire Stockman, related arts teacher, HCDE, Dan Liner, HCEA, NAACP, James Johnson, equity in Hamilton County Schools. We have the library leadership team, Debbie Condry. Then we have students leading change, Brett Schlichter. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Mr. Franklin McCauley, and then we have Mrs. Karen, is it Claypool or Claypool? Claypool. So that's 10, that's 5 minutes each. You have it. I'm gonna explain that in here, but you have exactly 5 minutes each, okay? Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Department of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent. If you are criticizing an individual employee, I will interrupt you and ask you to refrain. If you continue to criticize individual employees, or if your remarks are in error or becoming repetitive, I may interrupt you and ask you to sit down. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I will tell you when you have 1 minute left. You may begin when you're ready. So the way that I do this so that it's not distracting, I set my phone for 5 minutes. You have 1 minute left. I hold up my pen to let you know you have 1 minute left. When your 5 minutes is up, the iPhone will go off and whatever noise it's making needs to stop, okay? Alrighty, so we shall begin with Sheriff Jim Hammond.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Before the sheriff gets started, I was under the impression the sheriff was going to take a little more time than just a delegate. So if he runs close to that 5 minute mark, I hope we can reconsider some of the time that we give him.
What we can do, I think Sheriff Hammond, I think, is aware it's 5 minutes, but if you have a particular question to ask him, I think we could ask him that.
That's good. Have a question.
He has 5 minutes. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and superintendent for giving me this opportunity to speak. I will keep this close to the 5 minutes, and I'm sure when it goes off, I'll quit mid-sentence. I would begin by telling you that as sheriff of this county, it is my responsibility as a constitutional officer to overlook the safety and security of all of our citizens, including our young people who are in our school system. And I take that very serious. The SROs that presently exist do exist under the sheriff's operation. And right now with 70-some schools, I'm only on the campus of about 29 of those schools. So we have a big gap to fill there, if you will. I'm reminded of Charles Dickens when he wrote that famous novel so many years ago that most of us had in school, The Tale of Two Cities, where he said it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And I think we're in that when it comes to the dilemma of safety we see within our schools. There's a lot of options that are available to us to look at in order to preserve our children in their schools. And they're all over the board. And I hear them almost daily with letters and cards and calls. And as I speak to various groups, I'm called upon to talk about these things. I'm not here today to ask you for money. I'm here today to talk about the problem. It will take money to solve this problem. Over 100 years ago, the main thing that created loss of life in our schools and to our young people were fires. We solved that problem. We solved that problem by building better materials for our schools, by having fire drills, by moving away from the old pot bellies that we had and going into modern heating systems. We solved it by having routine fire drills for the teachers and for the students. And today we virtually do not lose any of our children through that. But we have another insidious problem, and that is what we have seen in these, all the way from terrorist attacks to mental health issues that come into the school, students with a grudge, and on and on and on. I could protect any school you wanted to if you had enough money. I can just about guarantee you we would have no problem with shootings in those schools. That's impossible given the cost. Right now, if you were to give me a check tonight to put someone in every school, it would be about $4 million additional dollars. It runs between $80,000 and $100,000 to equip one school with one SRO because of all the training, the vetting. Even if I had the money tonight, I probably could not put someone in a school before the very least a few, maybe before the next school term starts in August, but most likely in January at the winter break before I could bring us up to total speed. So that's the dilemma I have. No matter what we do in trying to deal with this problem, it's going to take a lot of effort on a lot of people's part to do it. If you broke that $4 million down in cost per student, we're talking about $25 a student to deal with the $4 million. And that's just to finish out the schools that have none in them now. But that's a recurring cost. I've been tracking very carefully what's going on at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level on what may come down the pipe. Very frankly, I'm not very encouraged what I'm seeing. I know there's some money coming to the feds. Most of that's going to be in block grants. Very little of it will reach Hamilton County. I know the governor has spoke of some money coming out of the state. Very frankly, most of that's going to go to the distressed counties. For Hamilton County, it's pretty much out there on its own on what we're going to do about this problem. So that is an issue. I plan in the next few weeks, probably about the second week in April, I'm going to secure that date, bring in a subject matter expert out of Washington who deals with what's going on across the country, what are the solutions that are best served. We do know that in some cases we're going to have to architecturally solve some problems with new schools on how we build those schools. Secondly, we're going to have to retrofit some schools. Some schools have many entrances and exits that makes it a nightmare for us to secure. We do know that there's equipment that you can do, whether it's the hardening of the materials to protect the children in the classrooms, the locks on the doors, the magnetometers out there. And we do know that we have the potential of SROs who are extremely expensive. Again, if you'll just think in the term $80,000 to $100,000 per SRO to put them out there, and all the training that goes with it. And then there's the one that is kind of the elephant in the room that everybody seems so emotional about, and that is, do you arm certain teachers in school? There is no one that is suggesting that I know of that you require any teacher against their will to work within the school system. But there are a lot of potentially good folks in the school that have hunted all their lives. They've been in the military, they've been in law enforcement. They could be a first stop measure until the police arrive on the scene. What we saw happen in New Jersey or in Maryland yesterday was a good SRO who was on duty and was able to stop that. We know that there are times when you're going to have teachers who are going to have to hold the fort for 10 to 15 minutes for somebody to arrive. So I'm not willing to take that off the table, even though it's a very emotional issue. I will entertain any questions. Did I stay within my...
Any of the board members say?
Mr. Chester, I believe first. Mr. Chester first, and then Mrs. Robinson.
Thank you much for being here tonight. I wish you had more time, but in the future, when you have group discussions at your office, especially with outside speakers, I hope that it'll be an open invitation for the school board to attend those meetings, because I think this is one of those areas where we have to follow you. we need your expertise. And I, for one, look forward to hearing and being part of your discussion.
I do plan to make this day for all those who are interested parties in certain delegation, especially those elected officials such as the school board who have such a vested interest in this matter.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson? I'm sorry. Okay, Ms. Thurman?
Yes. Hey, Sheriff Hammond, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. You said it's a $4 million price tag. We're working on our budget, as you've heard. And, with a budget as big as ours, I think it would be possible to come up with because if students are our top priority and safety is our top priority, it's what everybody is seeing, that's what everybody is saying, then that should be our top priority. And the extra money we have should go toward this. I'm not saying all $4 million, I'm saying maybe we could come up with part, maybe the county could come up with part. And I think Jill has the ear of the city mayor, Mayor Burke. Maybe he could, since they like to use our schools for their props sometimes, and we allow them to do that, that he would could come across with some money as well. So I'm thinking if it's important to everyone, then it should be everyone's problem. So I'm just saying if we could all pitch in, because I know sometimes the SROs when they're not in schools, you know, are used by the county, which is a good thing.
That's great.
But you know, so everybody would have skin in the game when it came to this, the city, the county, and the school system. So I think it's something maybe we could all three work together on and try to work on this, but I still want to pursue, of course, arming, not just teachers, but school staff, whoever it may be. And we have to wait, of course, till the Tennessee legislature finishes with that. But I'd like to have a lot more discussion with you on that as well.
Yeah.
Because I think it's something that's very important. It's something we need to use every arrow in our quiver
We do.
for this. And not just the doors, not just the entry systems. We need to use it all. And I think it's something that we can all do.
I agree. We need every tool in the toolbox to solve this issue. Right now, as I said, I'm on 29 campuses, and the bulk of the SROs are out of the sheriff's budget. Some of those under federal funding. The school, right now, the Department of Education gives me financing for 2 SROs. The city of Chattanooga gives me 2 city officers who are trained as SROs and work alongside. During the summer, when the SROs are not going through their training, they're out on the street. So to that extent, yes, there needs to be buy-in from the county budget also. But right now, the county does pick up the bulk of the expenses for the SROs. One of the things I'm also asking is some of the satellite cities, the municipalities, consider funding an SRO. And I agree with you, it is going to take a group approach to do the right thing.
Thank you so much. Mr. Wingate. Sheriff, thank you for coming. I just wanted to say I appreciate the fact that you have been willing to look at all options, and all options are on the table. I know as a school board, anybody that sits up here or sits in that crowd and says that they know what we need to do, you don't know what we need to do. None of us know what we need to do. We haven't had enough time to figure out what are best practices. We haven't had enough time to figure out how to best protect our students. If we did, we wouldn't be dealing with this issue anymore. But what I can tell you, regardless of the conversations that you may hear about or hear us having, I can promise you this school board has skin in the game. Multiple board members with children in our public schools, our superintendent with children in our public schools, and grandchildren in our public schools. So I can promise you it is a top priority with us. And I will also say I'm not willing to throw anything off the table yet because I don't know what the best idea is. But I can promise you we're going to spend our time and energy to try to figure those things out. So again, thank you for your open-mindedness and your willingness to look at all options, whatever they may be, and again, however emotional they may be, and that's not an endorsement for anything, but to say there are going to be many emotional decisions that come as part of this, and there are going to be some hard decisions that come out of this. So
I will, and I agree with you. I will say that in the private school sectors, many of them already have faculty who go about their business every day, are trained and are armed to do this. Again, that's not my first choice. My first choice is to allow me to train and put a vet, do the psychologicals, do the training for my regular SROs. But if we ever consider the other, those would be volunteer. They would be vetted just like a reserve officer. They would go through the same firearms training. They would go through the same annual in-service to be able to do that. But that's probably the least expensive way to deal with it. But if we're going to go the route of the SRO, I just want everybody to know it is not going to be a cheap fix.
Thanks, sir. Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, I think just real quick, I'd applaud the board and the district. There's definitely work to be done in this area, and it's the right conversation to be having around safety in respect to what's going on. But I'd point back to a couple things, Sheriff, that I think are important. One, I applaud the fact that we bring everybody around the table. And so there are 11 municipalities in Hamilton County, and all of those different municipalities need to be a part of this work. You know, the second thing I'll point to, though, is that over the course of the last, I guess, year and a half or so, I know the district boards made it a commitment even before I got here. 4.1 million was committed to upgrading internal security from the standpoint of phones, intercoms, video systems. And this year, in the initial projection, another $1.4 million is being allocated, with a portion of that in the initial piece being put towards the opportunity for you to add additional SROs. In addition to that, I think one of the conversations that we need to have is, I think when you go back and you look, and you know this better than me, over the last 10 years, that those that are committing these heinous acts, there's something wrong. You know, and we've got to get to the root cause. And so one of the other commitments that we're making, or that we would like to make through this budget cycle, is to increase the number of counselors and social workers we have for the social emotional learning I want us to look at it. I encourage us to look at it very broadly, and we definitely defer to expertise, because that's what happens. And I applaud the fact that you want to bring multiple people around, and know that in our initial budget presentation we made tonight, as far as looking at revenue, we've already made that commitment, and then over $5.5 million over the course of the last year and a half, really this board and our leaders across the system have committed, and will continue to work alongside you to keep our students safe.
And
Thanks, sir.
I would comment, Dr. Johnson and I had a great conversation in his office, and we talked about the various things he's talking about right now, and that kind of dialogue is productive for whatever we do down the road. I can say that in terms of the training that we're going to do with whatever the problem is, it is going to take a concerted effort, and I am going to invite to the table the people that I think will be the decision makers. And it's my understanding, unless I'm out of base, but the final decision is going to come from the school board. Am I correct in that?
That is correct.
On what you do. And that's the thing that's very important to me. As your sheriff, I'm committed to the safety of our kids, the best I can do that. And so whatever we come up with, but I will say this piece, and the mental health issue is a huge problem. 40% of the people in my jail do not belong in my jail. They're there because of mental health issues, and we have failed as a state to deal with our mental health problem. And many of these young people or adults who are involved in these shootings, simply the track record is there, and somebody either didn't pick up on it, whether it was a counselor, whether it was a doctor, whether it was a police officer. We're just not seeing something and saying something enough.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, your comment or question, sir?
Sheriff, thank you for coming, and a lot of good things have been said, and I too appreciate your willingness to gather a lot of people together and have these conversations, but I know the man behind the message, and I appreciate what you're trying to do, especially in just living out your commitment to your job. So at the end of the day, when we have all these conversations, I can say for this board member, I'm going to depend on your expertise to help guide us and help guide those conversations. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you for your
Sheriff,
time.
hand, please.
Mr. Thomas. Ready? You can begin when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Hit it.
My name is Ron Thomas. I've been a resident of Hamilton County for the past 52 years. I want to thank Chairman Highlander and Superintendent Johnson and all the board members for allowing me to come tonight and to express my concern about the safety of our school students in the event of an active shooter. It's become an ever-increasing occurrence in the United States, including Tennessee and our neighboring states. Would also like to thank Dr. McDade for sharing with me how the schools have taken steps to protect our students when an active shooter event happens. I encourage the school board to continue requiring and annually evaluating the implementation of best practices to create an environment that will reduce the risk of having an active shooter. However, my primary concern tonight is how the schools are preparing to confront, distract, subdue, and neutralize the shooter. The experience from 25 fatal shootings and 122 deaths since the Columbine High School shooting of 1999 has shown that the shooting events are over before law enforcement can arrive. The average shooting event is over in 12.5 minutes, while the average law enforcement response time is 18 minutes. Often the shooter commits suicide. If the shooter has free reign of the halls or the campus grounds, there will be an imminent threat to our students of death or injury. The most effective way, I believe, is to protect our students from active shooters to confront, distract, subdue, and neutralize the shooter at the earliest possible time. I would like to respectfully encourage the school board to do two things. One, set a tone for the entire school system by establishing and annually evaluating policies that will create a school environment that will make students feel loved, valued, accepted, safe, and empowered to learn. And secondly, to set a tone for the entire school system by establishing and annually evaluating active shooter response policies that will ensure that schools will have frequently tested plans for the dual purposes of, one, securing and protecting the students from the shooter, both inside the school and outside on the campus. And secondly, confronting, distracting, subduing, and neutralizing the active shooter immediately with an overwhelming force, both inside the school and outside the school property. I have a list of specific suggestions, ideas for school active shooter security for your review that has been passed out to each of you for your consideration. I will leave a copy of my suggestions that you already have in tonight's presentation to use as you may deem appropriate. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it.
Christine Essex. Ms. Claire Stockman.
Good evening, Dr. Johnson, Chairman Highlander, and members of the board. My name is Claire Stockman, and I am your Hamilton County Related Arts lead teacher. I support 215 visual and performing arts educators in every single Hamilton County school. And I got a lot of kudos for that tonight, but I tell you, I was not in the classroom when every piece of this artwork was created. I did not lead every one of these lessons. I just get to bring it to you, and that's a pleasure. We don't do it alone in Hamilton County. We really haven't ever, and even during the school day, we rely heavily on community partners, and I have one with me.
I'm Rodney Van Valkenburg. I'm with Artsfield. It's a pleasure to speak to Dr. Johnson and the school board, and thanks for the kind remarks from Mr. Testament.
And for a long time, Hamilton County Schools and Artsfield have been a part of a partnership through the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. This brings a lot of really high-quality professional learning to many of our teachers, and we want to let many more know about that because we're starting to see the results of this work. So we're here because March is Arts in Our Schools Month. I mentioned those 215 teachers that I have the pleasure of being in their classroom anytime I want. If you're one of those arts teachers, could you show us where you are? I've got some who didn't make it in the doorway. Hello, art teachers. If you have your for the hard work and support and dedication. Rehearsals, lessons, yeah. And if you've ever sung a song, drawn a picture, painted with your fingers, anybody? That's what I thought. All right. So 80% of Hamilton County students, kindergarten through 12th grade, they're participating in visual and performing arts every day at school. And you know what the secret is? That's the reason some of them walk in the door, right? Because they know fourth period is band, or they know second period is that visual art class where somebody's going to quit talking at them and just let them be creative. So we want to bring your attention to some other facts and figures.
And so at Artsville, we're really proud of being a partner with Hamilton County Schools. I gave you all a handout that shows that Artsville is investing $190,000 this year in Hamilton County Schools through arts programs. We want to highlight Imagine, which provides arts field trips for kindergarten through fourth grade. And we're very excited. This year we hit 100% of the schools participating. And what we're also very excited about is that 81% of those schools attended 3 or more of those presentations, which showing a great deal of interest by the teachers to take advantage of our arts resources. And also, we have a program by this gentleman in the middle, Usher, you may recognize, that provided us funding to provide local artists to go into second grade classrooms and lead 5 lessons in each of these schools that do not have a full-time visual arts teacher. And would be very, very excited to get out of this business and appreciate the talk of hiring new elementary visual arts teachers.
The art that is gracing our boardroom, once again, is from the Cue the Artist program. This is a program that was started here internally in Hamilton County with a curriculum written by our current teachers. Teachers in elementary grades are trained in that curriculum and given the best Christmas present ever. A plastic bucket of paint and paintbrushes and tempera and pastels and paper to do what you see around the room. And this year, when I asked them to submit these pieces, they said, yeah, but is it okay? I took the technique out of the book and then I matched it to this other curricular topic. Is that okay that I broke the rules? And I said, yeah, that's okay. That's what we want you to do. It's working in Hamilton County.
And there's lots of research to talk about why you should have arts in schools. And this is just a small example of Metro Nashville. Nashville Schools has a program called Music Makes Us. And really what the messages from all the research shows is that the more arts students have, the better they do academically. That is a consistent pattern. And what jumps out at you in the graduation rate, where you see that students with no music, and this particular focus on just music, the graduation rate was 60%, and when they have more than 1 year, it goes up to 91%. And a lot of that is what Claire had talked about, is there's a reason to go to school and excitement, and also brings in all those skills of concentration and cooperation and things that you need to succeed.
All right, I gave you a document that's, I call it the arts chart. This is the guide to Hamilton County offerings in the arts. It's laid out what's available in every school to our students. I want you to know that the arts... Sorry? Keep going? Okay, great. Oh. Maybe? So the arts teachers and I have a really fun project, and we are creating some curriculum guides, materials, and common assessments that we've never had in the past. The idea of this is to raise the quality of arts instruction across the district. We're really excited about this very, very hard work we're embarking on. Also, this Habits of Mind in the Arts Classroom is a document that was distributed last week in my March Advocacy email. I hope you've seen it. I wanted you to have your very own color copy. All of our principals also have that. So we're bridging the gap between what we know about the benefits of arts education and the way we're leveraging those benefits in every single school building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Liner.
Chairman Highlander, school board members, Dr. Johnson, thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of teachers. This meeting has a really good vibe. I am very happy to be here on a Thursday evening when I could be watching the NCAA basketball game or whatever. But I'm very happy to be here because I'm sensing a positive vibe from this particular meeting. And I want to thank all the participants. We began the meeting, well, actually, if we arrived at 4 o'clock, I was and I was a little bit late, but I was very pleased that we had Melissa making a presentation to the board, and we had John sitting right here at one point, and Melissa and John are doing fabulous work around the community school effort. So I'm very pleased that what was developed as a cell some time ago, Mrs. Jones running joke about, are you speaking about schools? But I'm very happy that cell has developed in a full-blossomed organism, an organization that's working very well. So I appreciate that very much. But I'm here to discuss several matters with you concerning teachers. We began the meeting, the actual meeting, by recognizing the Exemplars of Excellence. And I would say, with regard to every one of these exemplars of excellence, there was a teacher or a group of teachers who were using best practices that netted best results. So I think that term that Mr. Wingate used earlier, best practices, and we also heard Sheriff Hammond also address possible options for best practices. That is a paradigm that is very important as we engage as a community in this national discussion that from a national level and from many halls and state legislatures is quite disturbing. But we have proven in this meeting with this positive vibe that we are willing to consider, we as a community are willing to consider best practices, best proven practices, and data that will actually determine policy that will make our students more secure in our buildings. We don't want to lose even one student. One student is too much of a loss for a school district, but for a school district to lose 17 students on one day because best practices had not been employed in that school district, that's a tragedy. So I would implore this board, spend some time researching, looking at data, and locating those best practices, because in the end, we want every one of our students to enter school in pre-K, and we want every one of our students to exit our school system as a person armed to be a productive citizen. But we must ensure that each student is in an environment where there is safety, where there are safety measures in place that enable that student to learn and to achieve and grow and to develop into a young person who actually makes a difference in the lives of others. So I am, again, imploring this board, please consider best practices in terms of student safety. Thank you very much.
Good job, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Johnson, thank you very much for allowing me to appear tonight as a member of the Hamilton County branch of the NAACP. And I normally don't read remarks, but I'm going to have to read and read really fast to get through all this, so please excuse me for reading and reading fast. I'd like to recognize two NAACP officers who are here, Dr. Eleanor Woods, who is our president, and Jennifer Woods, who's a longtime teacher in the system and chair of our education committee. We have many other members of the NAACP present tonight. I won't recognize them by name. So here goes the reading. I'm a local attorney. I practiced law here in downtown Chattanooga for more than 10 years. I'm a Vietnam-era veteran of the Navy. My wife has deep family roots in Walker County, Georgia. We live in Chattanooga now, and our youngest child, who's now out of college, was a proud Collegiate High graduate, and she had a tremendous experience there. My practice is in civil rights. I'm here not just as an NAACP member, but as representing the Hamilton County branch of the NAACP. Like my family, the Hamilton NAACP is made up of local folk. Local folk just like you, whose life centers on church and family and who care deeply about this community. Tonight, we're here to present to you two proposals for the improvement of Hamilton County schools. We're asking that you carefully study our proposals. I'm going to leave each of you tonight with a folder that has 4 documents in it. 2 of the documents are our proposals. Both proposals are offers from what we believe to be the foremost experts in the nation in their fields to assist you to achieve the purposes of the proposals we made. The third document is a biography of one of our experts showing the many local school districts he's assisted over the past 35 years. The fourth document in your folder is a statement of facts which we believe support the adoption of our 2 proposals. The proposals have price tags. They total $500,000. We believe private funds will be available to cover their costs should these proposals be adopted. I'll briefly address each proposal. First proposal is by Rick Kalenberg and Michael Alves. It is for their team to assist you to work with the community at large in developing a choice-based socioeconomic desegregation plan. What does that mean? First, please understand that we believe the present county system is a dual system. There are 12 Chattanooga schools that are 90% or more Black and Hispanic. These schools have extremely high concentration of families in poverty. We call them the segregated schools. Students attending these 12 schools have dramatically less academic success than students in other county schools. As a result, these children have dramatically lower expectations for success in their lives. Choice-based socioeconomic desegregation means that the extreme concentrations of poor students in these 12 schools would, over time, be reduced. The reductions over time would be accomplished by district-wide parental choice in schools. Choice is limited to public schools. There's no public funding of private school choice. There will be no involuntary busing of children to a school. Transportation will be provided to support school choice for families who are in poverty. Parental choices would be guided by best practices learned by our experts over 35 years of working with dozens of local school districts. Among the best practices, and they're listed in the proposal, and you'll see them, and they're more than this, but I want to highlight a few. There's grandfathering. Students already enrolled in a school would be allowed to remain in their currently assigned school if they so choose. This can be extended to the feeder pattern of the school as existing upon adoption of the parental choice plan. Sibling assignments. If the parents wish it, siblings of students in a school would be assigned to the same school. Proximity assignments. Students who reside in walking distance of a school, however that may be defined, would be given priority to attend that school. Socioeconomic diversity. All student assignments not covered by the above priorities would be subject to the socioeconomic diversity definitions that are adopted in the plan that's developed with the community and that you all would have to approve and adopt. There are many other elements to the planning process shown in the proposal. They're not time to mention now, but you can review them in the coming days, and we would welcome the opportunity to discuss them with you further and with your staff and with Mr. Bennett. The second document in your folder is the professional biography of team lead expert Michael Alves. You will see that Mr. Alves and his team have developed choice-based socioeconomic desegregation plans that were implemented in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is Wake County, Charlotte, North Carolina, Mecklenburg County, Fort Myers, Florida, which is Lee County, Port St. Lucie, Florida, and right here in Tennessee in Fayette County. Mr. Alves and his team would work alongside you and the community at large in aiding you to develop and implement the plan. Our second proposal is by the Howard Group. This proposal is to give our teachers and administrators training and teaching to children coming to school from homes in poverty. It also provides further training and teaching African American and Hispanic children. Our teacher workforce is 88% white and middle class. Dr. Howard's group seeks to serve our teachers by giving them practical, everyday classroom tools to teach children of different economic, racial, and ethnic backgrounds. We believe our system loses many good teachers and fails to attract many good teachers because of frustration with teaching children who come to school from traumatic home lives or for whom English is a second language or who just don't seem to respond to their teaching. Dr. Howard's team will give our teachers real everyday teaching methods to increase these students' academic success and increase the students' respect for and appreciation of their teachers. The training doesn't change academic standards. Instead, it provides everyday tools for increasing academic success at achieving the academic standards. The fourth and final document, may I briefly invoke the exception given to the other speakers? I have maybe 30 seconds left. The fourth and final document in your folders is our statement of facts, which we believe supports the adoption of our proposals. Some may find these facts hurtful. That's not our intention. We don't want to engage in any sort of a blame game. We don't want to look backward. We are just interested in looking forward, and we trust that you all would like to do the same. We state these facts only to support the necessity of action. Action on these plans will place the school district in a national forefront of educational improvement. Our community has a world-class technology sector now, a recreation and tourism sector, economic development sector. We believe adopting these plans will place our public education sector at the same level. Adopting these proposals, we believe, is both a moral duty and a legal duty to the children in the segregated schools. I want to mention also that Dr. Woods and Ms. Woods were invited to be on the Equity Task Force, and they will certainly participate. And I'm going to leave copies of our two proposals and our statement of facts and the four documents I mentioned with Mr. Bennett, I guess is the best place to leave them so that they would be available to you all. There's enough for each of you to have copies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Conley.
I'm Debbie Condry from McConnell Elementary, but I also want to introduce Melanie Collins from CCA and Donna Williams from Red Bank Middle. Laura Dowd from Nolan could not be here. And I also have to recognize Becky Covington, our director, and Lee Hope is here from the Chattanooga Public Library. I don't know how to work this, but I'll figure it out. Superintendent Johnson, Chairman Highlander, and members of the board, we are the library leadership team representing HCDE's librarians. At the start of this school year, every librarian received $1,000 for their library program. While there are many creative ways this money could be used to promote learning in the Media Center, librarians overwhelmingly chose to spend the money to place engaging new books in the hands of our students.
Last April, we shared with you the many ways HCDE librarians empower our students every day. We are first and foremost teachers who prepare students to navigate an increasingly complex world of information. We are instructional partners who support curriculum and impact student achievement. We provide collaborative spaces to students to explore, create, and express themselves. We empower students to become critical thinkers, skillful researchers, and enthusiastic readers.
An important part of our job is to assess library resources and seek out the best options to meet the needs of our students. This spring, we asked Follett Book Solutions to analyze each library collection to help us with this process. Follett used the Tennessee state requirements for school libraries to measure our collections based on two criteria: the number of items per student and the age of the items based on copyright date. The analysis indicates that none of our HCDE school libraries even meet the state's basic requirements. The average copyright date of the books in our library is 1996. Bill Clinton was president. DVDs were launched in Japan. The Summer Olympics were in Atlanta. And none of our current students were even born.
Lack of funding has taken a detrimental toll on our school libraries. How have libraries funded their collections? Librarians are responsible for creating their own budgets by raising funds. Most often this is done through book fairs and other fundraisers. Some librarians have written grants, and a few receive limited funding from their principals or parent organizations. At this time, there is no line item in the general budget for school libraries.
Our goal is to improve equity in the library resources and services across the district. We believe that every student should have access to quality resources no matter which Hamilton County school they attend. The next 6 slides show elementary, middle, and high schools in terms of copyright date, first in terms of copyright date, and second in terms of items per student. While several libraries have enough books per student, those books are extremely old and outdated. In other cases, libraries have current books but do not have enough books per student. Librarians need to weed materials that no longer support the curriculum because the content is irrelevant or no longer correct. Often librarians hesitate to remove dated materials because they do not have funds to replace them. However, weeding is an essential component of library collection management and is necessary for resources to remain relevant to our users. The demographics of the different communities we serve also creates discrepancies in the librarian's ability to raise funds. Without consistent funding, it is impossible to maintain the number of required up-to-date items per student.
Here's the quoted cost for Follett to correct our deficiencies. Follett analyzed each library collection, then calculated what it would take from a weeding perspective, then a purchasing perspective, to reach Tennessee state standards using School Library Journal's annual average price of school library books. This is a large amount of data which we hope to share with you in more detail in the near future. As you can see, these totals reveal an incredible need.
Hamilton County continues to search for literacy strategies that really show results. One effective strategy could be to simply fund the school library to bring it up to standards. Research indicates that increased funding for school libraries increases reading scores. Libraries are the hub of learning. We support every child and every teacher within our schools. We want our students to have access to the best resources. We have a 5-year plan. Invest in ebooks and other shared digital resources. Focus on schools of greatest need first. Take our partnership with the public library to the next level. Maintain up-to-date collections moving forward. We want to give our students the resources needed to be successful in school, as well as develop the love of reading.
At the start of this school year, every librarian received $1,000 for their library. We put exciting books into our students' hands. We increased circulation. Students asked questions they would not have asked. Students explored places they could never visit in person. Students met people who overcame obstacles and changed the world. Our students will change the world because we give them the gift of books. We would welcome the opportunity to share our plan and goals to ensure all students of Hamilton County have this opportunity. Thank you.
We'll be more than happy to do that as we go forward.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Smith.
May I just say this? I spent a lot of time with Miss Condry at McConnell Elementary, and you know, it's amazing, not just you, but all of you guys, librarians across the district, and how creative you are and how depleted that your resources are, and you still find a way. You still find a way. So I appreciate you guys, and I just want to say that publicly, especially you, Ms. Condry, but all of you guys. Thank y'all for what you do.
All Mr. Smith was going to say, as a young person, you spend all of his spare time in the library.
That would be a lot.
Students leading change.
So we are Chattanooga Students Leading Change. First, we want to thank y'all for serving Hamilton County and us as students personally. We represent schools all across Hamilton County, along with private and home schools throughout our area. And we appreciate y'all for hearing us tonight. And we would like to know your stance on gun sense in the schools in Hamilton County. And we're here to ask questions about pending legislation about House Bill 2208 and your intended security measures in our schools.
House Bill 2208 says that school board members may choose teachers to carry concealed firearms on campus as a measure of safety. As in teacher shootings in Dalton High School and Monterey Police districts, we wouldn't feel comfortable with teachers carrying guns. If this bill were to pass, will you commit to passing a resolution not to arm teachers in Hamilton County?
As students, we want to be prepared for any situation and request frequent active shooting drills in every school in the county. Can you commit to more enforced active shooting drills, and if so, how do you plan to implement these? Furthermore, will you change the existing drills after shooting like Parkland, which occurred during a fire drill?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Do you have any current documents so that we can refer back to them?
Yes.
If you have it, just if you could get it to our board secretary,
Okay.
just forward. Thank you.
I guess, can I make a comment real quick? We've had a lot of presentations around safety, and I mean, we've all stated our stance on safety, how important it is to us, but I would think that in the next coming months, especially at the state, after the state makes decisions, that we as a board will have more concrete plans around safety in our schools. So I just felt like that should be stated, that we hear you, and we absolutely are on the same page with everyone that has spoken tonight. But there are certainly a number of things that we need to wait and see happen, especially on the state level too, before we can have important dialogue about that within our schools. So I just wanted to state that we hear you and we appreciate everything that everyone's bringing to us around safety.
Thank you, all three of you, and all three of you might come to consider a career in education. The young lady in the middle definitely has a teacher voice.
Thank you. Mr. Shelton.
Dr. Johnson, board, I consider it a privilege to be able to share some thoughts with you. My name is Brett Schleisner. I'm a Master of Social Work student at UTC right now. I'm just about to finish. So is he with high school, of course. So I just want to share a needs assessment with you based on what I've experienced. Since I was born, in the first month of East Ridge Hospital's opening in 1974, I've noticed a lot of change in Chattanooga. And one of the changes that I've seen has been big. I'm going to talk about it. But over the last 20 years, I've been an ordained minister. I've been a chaplain at Erlanger. I've been a preschool soccer coach. And I'm the husband of a teacher at Barger Academy of Fine Arts. And I'm a Spanish speaker. And so a change that I've seen that we're in the midst of is the following. According to La Paz, Chattanooga, the population of Latinos in Chattanooga was 3,300 in 2000, so 18 years ago. The population is now 20,000. That's the size of the entire city of East Ridge. And it's projected to be 24,000 in 2020. That's close to 60% of the total population growth in Chattanooga is just Guatemalans. So I found this out because I've been working with Centerstone at Howard High School as a therapist, mostly with Guatemalan immigrants who speak only Spanish. They told me their stories about gang attacks, rapes, abuse. These are refugee minors with PTSD, major depression, hundreds of them, and all kinds of disorders from trauma. It makes life and decision-making very difficult for them. I just found out last week that Howard High School, which has been an all-African-American school for over 150 years, now has more Latino boys than African American boys. Did any of you know that? It's one reason why this is a difficulty for us as a community is because kids over age 12 who are trying to learn a new language have special difficulty with learning a new language. Kids under 12 can learn it much easier. But what I've noticed at Howard, we've got hundreds of children or kids that are really struggling with language. They have one ESL class a day, and then they're just immersed straight into English, English-speaking math classes, English-speaking science classes. It's a pretty high dropout rate for them. And then what happens when we have the high dropout rates is just increasing risks of poverty, increasing risk of gang involvement, increasing risk of illegal employment. And so also, I just know from my job, there's a long waiting list for therapy services that they don't have access to because many of them are undocumented. Even though they're refugees, they don't have TennCare, and so they can't be served. So I'm passionate about this. I love people. I just wanted to give you some information and offer myself if there's any kind of a task force or research team to try and troubleshoot for how to serve these people and make our community better and help them, integrate into the community rather than, maybe not integrate so much into the community. I'm just offering myself. I'd love to help.
Come here, gracias.
Thank you so much. Mr. McCauley.
Good evening. I'm Franklin McCauley, 1615 Reed Avenue. I was born and raised and educated in Chattanooga. I'm 77 years old. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I'm a patriot of the United States of America. In 1968 to 1971, I was an English teacher and then assistant principal at the Howard School. I left Howard for further graduate education and eventually became a 22-year public high school principal in St. Louis, Missouri. It would be difficult for me to overstate the degree of the mistake I believe it would be to arm our teachers. As an English teacher, my mind was on giving my students the opportunity to read, write, think, discover, etc. And I was not considering where I would keep a gun or how I would brandish it. But beyond that, I know that a multitude of guns would bring a multitude of dangerous accidents and misjudgments, or the real possibility of thefts of guns too easily accessed by someone who was not supposed to possess a gun at school. On the other hand, I would welcome, as I eventually did welcome in St. Louis, a trained school resource officer. This police officer's job was safety within the school, and he was focused 100% on that goal. My job was education, and I was focused on that goal as a teacher and a principal. I did work hand in glove with my SRO on plans for any eventuality, and he was the right person to share updated security methods with me so that we could collaborate to carry out those plans. Finally, please consider who profits by putting millions of dollars worth of guns into the hands of classroom teachers. I would suggest it is not our schools in any way. I appreciate you listening. My friend and colleague, former teacher in Hamilton County Schools, Kerry Garrett, will give you a copy of my statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Claypool.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson,
Chairman Highlander, and members of the school board. I'm Karen Claypool. I'm a retired HCDE educator. I taught German and English in a couple of schools, the last of which was CCA, and I'm currently a small business owner, and it's through my business that I do quite a bit of international travel. And I talk to a lot of people, and I'll have to say that I am heartbroken that there's even a need to be here and discuss the issue of school safety. And I am appalled that Tennessee is considering arming teachers. And I would like to ask the same question the students who addressed you a few minutes ago did. I would like to know what your response will be to that. I've talked with a lot of former colleagues and teachers all over, and none of them has told me that he or she thinks it's a good idea to arm teachers. I know there are a few teachers that think that is a good idea. I've not talked to any, and I certainly know that I would not have wanted to be responsible in my classroom for keeping up with a weapon. I once had a student steal my keys and then steal my car. Heaven only knows what that young lady would have done had I had a gun even locked up in my office when she had a copy of my keys. I talk to people from other countries and they say, what is going on in America? And I think the solution, one of you, I can't remember which one, asked a bit ago, what are we going to do about getting to the root of the problem? Arming teachers is just exacerbating the problem. I think we need to look at the fact that our society in America has what I think is a very warped view about guns. I think we need as a society to work to get rid of things like assault rifles, bump stocks. I think we need to raise the age of when people can purchase guns. Now, I know that's not the school board's job, but I think that's society's job, and I would like the school board and Hamilton County Schools not to add to that problem. SROs, I think, would be a much more sensible way to solve security issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Now, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes for February 8th, 2018 special call session, February 15th, 2018 regular session.
Move to approve.
So moved by Ms. Jones. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lennon. Vote, please.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman Holland?
Yes. I'd like a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Move to approve.
Ms. Jones. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lennon. Any items we'd like to pull, please? Ms. Lennon, you want to pull an item? No. No items to be pulled. Thank you very much.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman Holland?
Yes. Now we need to go down to administrative matters, I believe. Is that right, Ms. Ford?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, Chief Operations Officer, Dr. Lee McDade. First on this item. Try not to be too lengthy, sir.
You have before you a first reading for a tobacco policy that Ms. Lennon brought to me. It's kind of been reworded a little bit. Again, this is the first reading, no action is required.
Thanks, sir. No action on this.
You also have before you a track replacement at Soddy Daisy High School. At this time, I do recommend approval.
Move to approve. Second. Mr. Testman moved, Ms. Turner second. Call for the vote. Any discussion before we vote? Vote please.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman Highlander?
Yes.
You also have before you engineering design services for a new building project. At this time, I do recommend approval.
Motion please.
I'll second.
Move approved, Mr. Galloway, second by Ms. Thurman. Any discussion? Call the vote please.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman Highlander?
Yes. Next please.
You have before you the recommended architectural contracts for the 2018 projects that will be started. At this time, I do recommend approval.
Motion please.
Move to approve.
Mr. Testman, second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Galloway. Discussion. Call for vote please.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman Highlander?
Yes. Next please, sir.
Yes, sir. You have the real estate, finally the closing for the old East Brainerd Elementary School.
Move to approve.
Amen.
Move to approve, unorthodox but good second.
Is that wrong?
That's right. Okay.
The closing will be Monday, and Mr. Witt will represent the district.
Are we gonna have a party?
Thank you very much. Okay, I hope there's no discussion. Is there,
No, go ahead.
is there discussion on this? Then we need to call for the vote, please.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman Highlander?
Yes. Purchase maintenance vehicles.
Yes, I have brought before you the purchase of 10 vehicles. We've gone back with through. We still have several vehicles that have over 250,000 miles on it. We're trying to get those caught up. I think this year catches us up. We only need to buy 2 to 3 vehicles a year after this. But we went for a while and did not buy any vehicles, and this is the result.
Call for motion, please.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Smith, second please. Galloway, call for vote, please.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Glad this is the last. Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman Highlander?
Yes. Now we have, correct me if I'm wrong, now this is the place we put Mr. Testerman's request.
Well, we have 2 other things under there first.
Pardon me?
We have 2 other things under there first.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, we do that. Approval of special courses, Dr. Jessica Robertson.
Yes, sir. So just a request for approval to submit the attached special course applications for the 2018-2019 school year. Recommend approval.
Okay, motion please.
So moved. Second.
So moved and second. Call for vote, call for vote please.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman Highlander?
Yes. Tenure recommendations, Mr. Fogel.
You have before you a list of teachers who have satisfactorily completed their probationary period. They have met the evaluation score requirements, and I would recommend that tenure be awarded to the individuals on the list.
Move to approve.
Motion approved, Mr. Galloway, second. Mr. Testman, call for vote please.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman Highlander?
Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but now it's XD, which is Mr. Testerman's proposal for discussion. Mr. Testerman?
Yes, I'd like to propose, and I'm not sure of the proper terminology, but an addendum to the retirement plan that we have out there. And I would like for us to add to that reconsideration of the teacher that was injured, and that Dr. Johnson, his staff sit down with them and see if that can be resolved, and if it's at all possible to provide incentive to this individual.
I'll second that. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Discussion, is this for just, people, I have a question. Is this just for this one individual, or is
Yes,
this?
that's the only one that
It's the only one that came to the board.
it's the only one that came to the board.
Okay.
So we're not changing that date or anything, just this one particular teacher.
Yes.
But if another one was to come forward with something similar, we'd have to do the same thing.
Well, I mean, anyone's welcome to come before the board to make an appeal for something. But this is the only one I'm aware of.
Dr. Highlander.
Yes, sir.
So what's the question here?
The way I believe, I could let Mr. Testman, but I believe he's requesting that Dr. Johnson work with the lady in question. Is that, Mr. Testman, let me let you state it how you want it to be stated.
Dr. Johnson, his staff worked with the teacher that was injured by a student, and there's some question about eligibility, that they sit down with this person and find a way to provide an opportunity for them to receive this incentive.
Now, you want verification, or just?
Yes, let them sit down and discuss it, yes.
Okay. So we're not giving, we're not giving a majority order.
I hadn't really talked to, I've met the particular employee the first time.
I do have a question for clarification I think is going to be important. I know that Keith spoke earlier to the fact that there's 10 to 15 maybe people that are there that have come directly to him that haven't come.
But this is a specific, where this teacher was injured and had to use up all of her days that she could have been using now to finish out her 5-6 days, whatever it was, to be able to retire. She was injured by a student and had to be off for surgery, and it just took up all of her days. So we're only talking about 5 or 6 days. If there's anybody else that has this unique situation, then they can come before the board as well. I don't think we're opening up anything for anybody. I mean, we do this for students that are suspended. If they want to come before the board and the board hear it, we can do that on a student-by-student basis as we can for these other people, but we can't do anything about age limits. We can't change anybody's birth date, for crying out loud. But if there's somebody else that's been injured and has been off and something beyond their control, this person had to end up having surgery and was off for a good while, and they just took up all their days. So, like I said, it's an unusual circumstance. If there's anyone else there, they can come before the board as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate.
So I guess I don't understand what action is required of the board. I mean, if they want to have a conversation with the superintendent with human resources, I don't know what that's got to do with the board at this time.
Well, because right now that person has not, I do not feel that they've had an opportunity to sit down with them and to review their case and look at all the facts involved.
So what I'm saying is I understand that. What action is required of the board for them to sit down and have a conversation? I don't understand why that comes before us right now. Now, they have a conversation and they come back and the board needs to override whatever. I mean, I understand that. I don't understand why we've got to, what's the issue right now?
So is it, let me just say this. My interpretation, I think, Joe, maybe of why it has to come before the board is that we were the ones who initially set limitations to what that incentive program is. So this would supersede or go against what we said. So I think that's why, if I'm wrong, tell me. But I think that's what I'm understanding. That it's kind of like an appeal. The same as like when students go before Lee and he said it, and Dr. Johnson said it, but then they come to us because they don't agree. So I think it's kind of like we're doing an appeal, ain't it? That's what I'm getting. But I don't know what that looks like because we've really never done that before, but that's what it sounds like.
Okay, and I completely understand that. What I'm saying is when a student and their family goes before Dr. Madej with an appeal, we don't have to approve their ability to go have an appeal.
So can I throw
So again, I don't understand what our action is here.
Right. So maybe let us work, Keith and so that if we have appeals that wanna come forth, we don't get ourselves into a situation where next month, we've got 15 people coming before the board with, and I don't think we will, but I wanna just make sure we have processes, so if we have an individual employee in that situation, we can work through it.
So what does that mean though for the
But I think tonight, I think we need to make, this is I think it's a special situation to have a teacher that was injured, and very possible that because of those days that they lost on the job, that they could make this retirement incentive. And I think we need to direct our superintendent to specifically look at this case right now.
Can I rephrase that, Mr. Or would you consider letting me rephrase that, Mr. Chessman? And if you think if you don't agree with what I say, do that we will instruct our, as majority of us will instruct our superintendent to look at this specific case, and if he deems it viable and the background is correct, then we give him the authority to rectify this situation for this one individual. Yes. If he deems that it's correct, is that Mr. Attorney? Is the way I phrase that a little more appropriate?
Yes, that's spot on. Essentially, you're giving your superintendent the discretion to look at this teacher's time and service and to impute the days that she was off on injury to her for purposes of retirement credit.
Correct.
After verification. Yes. Okay. So I didn't mean to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to clarify the action just a little bit. So we have a motion.
It's a work in progress.
We have a motion and second. Any more discussion?
I still don't understand what we're voting on.
Okay.
But listen, it's duly noted that there are people on the board who are advocating for this individual. Their right to an appeal has nothing to do with any action on our part. We don't approve a student appeal for behavior. We come back and approve or disapprove of the action that the administration deems appropriate.
I think what we're doing, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what we're doing is we have set a rule of when it's going to be of certain specifications, time-wise and age-wise and so forth, and we're giving our superintendent the authority to change that we've already voted on if we so move this way. And it's totally up to him, his discretion after his looking into the validity of the claim.
This one claim.
This one claim.
Dr. Highlander,
yes, sir.
Is what I think what Mr. Wingate's asking. I think this has already been done. This person spoke with Mr. Bowden, right? And was told that and was told by what you should have told them, that the board voted that not to be so. So in fact, then they made the appeal, as I understood it. Now to me, that's the way it would go if it was with a student. They'd make it through Dr. They'd make it through Mr. Bowden because it had to do with this. That's how I saw it. I know, Joe, what you want to hear, we talk about it in the workshop, but I think that's what happened. It actually came through the administration first, and then we, because of special circumstances, yes, in the meeting, let's talk about whether or not we want to override it, or at least have a student.
So,
is that correct?
They couldn't do anything about it without our approval.
Correct.
Right.
That's what I
The
was
thing's having to go by the rules, and we're saying it's okay to break the rules, almost say with the change, to amend the rules for this one particular case. That's what we need to vote on.
So I have a question though, Scott.
Yes, ma'am.
Legally, what does this look like for us as a board? Like, what precedents do we set with this?
Well, what you're doing, essentially, as the chairman said, is you're giving the administration the discretion to impute time and service to somebody who would have served that time and service but for an injury. So essentially what you're doing, you're saying, okay, you were injured while on our watch. The time that you spend, that you're out going through recovery, is time that you would have been under our umbrella anyway. And as a matter of fact, that's actually very consistent with state law. Hamilton County is very unusual in that you do not have workers' compensation. But if you did, there would be no question that this particular employee would be on the clock, would be on the payroll, and you wouldn't hold the time that he or she was out against that person. So, I mean, honestly, it sounds like if the administration's already determined that this person would qualify, but for the timeout, you don't need to give the administration discretion. You just go ahead and grant that. Is that the case, Dr. Johnson?
Well, I mean, as we talked around, I just wonder if the board just doesn't approve the appeal.
If you know.
The person's appeal, so if the board wants to approve the appeal, and then we'll deal with it, just approve the appeal or disapprove the appeal. I think putting it back to the administration is gonna open up a door. Let's just require them to come forward, the person's come forward to appeal, so that.
Would you change your motion, Mr. Testerman, to approve this?
I do change it to approve the appeal.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yes. Do
we have a second?
I'll second.
Second? Second? Okay. Call, any discussion or call for the vote? Discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Testerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
No.
Chairman Highlander?
Yes. Thank you all very much for that. Next, we have a legal service report, information only, excuse me. Anything else? We have several events, with community listening tour, East Ridge at 6 o'clock on the 26th. East Hamilton, 6 o'clock listening event on the 27th. Spring holiday, starts the 30th. Kindergarten pre-registration, April 11th. Budget work session, April 12th is our next meeting. April 19th, budget work session, and regular board meeting.
I just want to say happy social worker month to all the social workers in Hamilton County, because I'm a social worker and I know that's like, we're, I want to say as a social worker, please pass that on, Dr.
Dr. Holland.
Yes, sir.
On the 19th, there is a meeting in Nashville on the 19th, and not.
18th.
Is that the 18th?
The safety center.
Okay,
The 18th.
all right, that's good.
Is that the school safety meeting? I'm hoping to go that too.
Okay, if you're planning on going and if you haven't already contacted me, let me know. I'll get you registered.
I did try to make reservations, all the block rooms gone.
Okay.
They were gone that
Actually, it
day.
doesn't start till 10 o'clock, our time. I didn't realize that. So, so,
Thank you all for your patience, board and audience and staff. We're adjourned.
Here, but it's not long from where it
This board is at the 18th.
I'll let you know tomorrow once I know if I can get out.
How you doing? Nice to see you. 5
I thought we had got over here.
I went to one downtown, 3 a.m. Now, I left this
I know what that feels Okay, all right, thank
Richard Jones? I'm David Stewart.